Captain Do-hyun Park stood at the bridge of the HSS Perseverance, watching the stars through the old scratched viewport. His ship was not beautiful. It was not fast. It was not strong. In fact, most people called it a flying coffin. The name hurt, but Do-hyun understood why they used it. His ship was the oldest destroyer still flying in Earth's fleet. The bridge around him looked nothing like the shiny command centers of newer ships. The walls were covered in old-style screens and buttons instead of the modern holographic displays. The metal floor panels creaked under his feet as he walked. Even the ship's computer talked in an old mechanical voice that newer ships had replaced with smooth, natural-sounding ones. "Captain, we're getting a message," said Song Yi-rim from her station. She was his tactical officer, young but very smart. She had chosen to serve on this old ship when everyone else wanted the newer ones. "It's from Admiral Kim. He says it's urgent." Do-hyun walked to the communications screen. It flickered 3 times before showing Admiral Kim's face. The Admiral looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. That was not surprising. The human fleet had just lost a big battle at Proxima Centauri. Many good ships and brave people were gone. "Captain Park," the Admiral said, "I have a special mission for you and the Perseverance." "Sir, with all respect, my ship is—" Do-hyun started to say. "Your ship is exactly what we need." Admiral Kim cut in. "Listen carefully. You are to pick up a passenger from the Newton Research Station, Dr. Lee Mi-rae. She's a quantum physicist, and she's carrying very important research data. You will take her to the secret facility at coordinates I'm sending now." Do-hyun looked at the coordinates appearing on his screen. They pointed to a place deep in space, far from any normal travel routes. "Sir, that's in the middle of nowhere." "Exactly. And that's why your ship is perfect for this job." The Admiral leaned closer to his camera. "The Artaxians are hunting for Dr. Lee. They want her research. They'll be looking for our newest, fastest ships trying to smuggle her away. Nobody will expect us to use—" He paused. "A flying coffin." Do-hyun finished for him. The Admiral nodded. "Sometimes being underestimated is an advantage, Captain. Pick up Dr. Lee in 6 hours. Kim out." The screen went dark. Do-hyun turned to his bridge crew. Besides Yi-rim at tactical, there was Kang Hae-nul at engineering and Oh Min-ki at navigation. They were all young, all assigned to this ship because no one else wanted to serve on it. But they were good at their jobs, and more importantly, they were loyal. "Plot a course to Newton Station," he ordered, "and run a full check on all systems. If we're going to be carrying an important passenger, I want this old girl working as well as she can." The crew got to work. As they did, Do-hyun walked to the viewport again. He put his hand on the cold metal frame, feeling the slight vibration of the ship's old engines. The Perseverance might be old, but she had never let him down. 6 hours later, they'd arrived at Newton Station. It was a small research facility, spinning slowly in space. As they approached, Hae-nul spoke up from his engineering station. "Captain, I'm reading some strange energy signatures," he said. "They're faint, but they're not normal for this region." Before Do-hyun could respond, 3 ships appeared out of nowhere. They were sleek and deadly looking, their hulls painted in the dark purple colors of the Artaxian Empire. "Artaxian warships," Yi-rim shouted. 3 Striker class. They're powering up weapons. Do-hyun's mind raced. Striker-class ships were some of the fastest in the galaxy. The Perseverance couldn't outrun them. They couldn't outfight them either. But maybe. "Hae-nul, how's our old stealth system?" he asked. "The magnetic distortion field. It hasn't been used in years, Captain. Modern sensors can see right through it." "Modern sensors are looking for modern stealth technology," Do-hyun said. "Yi-rim, get me the station on the comm. Hae-nul, power up that distortion field. Min-ki, plot us a course directly between the station and the nearest Artaxian ship." The station's director appeared on the screen. Behind him, Do-hyun could see people running around in panic. "This is Captain Park of the Perseverance," Do-hyun said quickly. "We're here for Dr. Lee." "Thank God," the director said. "She's ready for immediate transfer, but those are Taxian ships. We'll handle it. Prepare for emergency docking in 2 minutes." The Perseverance moved forward, its old engines groaning. The Artaxian ships started to move too, trying to cut them off from the station. "Distortion field active," Haenul reported. "But Captain, it's not hiding us. They can still see us." "Good," Do-hyun said. "I want them to see us. Min-ki, take us in fast. Make it look like we're trying to run past them." The Artaxians took the bait. Their ships moved to intercept the Perseverance's apparent course. That's when Do-hyun smiled. "Now, Min-ki, full stop and reverse thrust." The old ship shuddered as its engine switched direction. Modern ships couldn't stop this quickly. Their advanced propulsion systems needed time to change direction. But the Perseverance's old-fashioned engines could do it instantly, even if it strained the hull. The sudden stop caught the Artaxians by surprise. They had expected the human ship to keep running. Instead, the Perseverance was now moving backward, straight toward the station, while the Artaxian ships overshot their mark. "Docking clamps ready," Haenul reported. "Energy spike." Yi Rim warned. "They're turning to fire." The first Artaxian ship fired its weapons, but something strange happened. The energy beams seemed to bend around the Perseverance, missing it completely. "Haenul," Do-hyun asked, surprised. "It's the distortion field, Captain," Haenul said excitedly. "Their targeting systems are too advanced. They're trying to compensate for our stealth field, but the field is so old and imperfect that their corrections are making them miss." The Perseverance reached the station. The docking clamps engaged with a loud clang that echoed through the ship. Minutes later, a woman in a science uniform ran onto the bridge, carrying a large case of equipment. She had sharp eyes and moved with quick, precise steps. "Dr. Lee Mei-Ray," she said shortly. "We need to leave. Now." "Working on it," Do-hyun said. The Artaxian ships were coming around for another attack. "Min-ki, get us out of here. Haenul, keep that distortion field running. Yi Rim, route emergency power to the rear shields." The Perseverance broke away from the station. Its old engines were pushing as hard as they could. Behind them, the Artaxian ships followed, firing their weapons. But their shots kept missing, confused by the imperfect stealth field. Dr. Lee watched the tactical display with interest. "Fascinating," she said. "Their targeting systems are being fooled by quantum interference patterns from your outdated field generator. The imperfections in the field are actually creating a more effective defense than modern stealth systems." "That's nice," Do-hyun said, "but it won't last forever. We need to get away from them." "I might have an idea about that," Dr. Lee said. She opened her case and pulled out a strange device. "Captain, how would you feel about letting me connect some experimental equipment to your ship's quantum core?" Do-hyun looked at the device, then at the Artaxian ships still chasing them. Sometimes, he thought, the best choice was the only choice you had left. "Haenul," he said, "show Dr. Lee to the engine room. Let's see what she can do with our old girl." As Haenul and Dr. Lee left the bridge, Do-hyun watched the Artaxian ships on his screen. They were still following, still shooting, still missing. His old, outdated ship was surviving through pure chance and imperfection. He wondered what other surprises the Perseverance might have in store. The chase had only begun, and somewhere in the distance, their mysterious destination waited. Do-hyun had a feeling that this mission was going to change everything. For his ship, for his crew, and maybe for all of humanity. He just hoped they would survive long enough to find out how. The engine room of the HFY Perseverance was hot and noisy. Engineer Kang Haenul wiped sweat from his forehead as he helped Dr. Lee Mei-Ray set up her equipment. The ship's old quantum core hummed loudly behind them, its blue light pulsing in an uneven rhythm that would have been fixed on newer ships. But they couldn't fix it now. They'd barely had time to think. "Hand me that connector," Dr. Lee said, pointing to a silver cable in her case. Her hands moved quickly, connecting her strange device to the ship's systems. "Your quantum core is very interesting. I've never seen one this old still working." "Most people would say that's a bad thing," Newell said, passing her the cable. The whole ship shook as another near miss from the Artaxian weapons rocked them. "But the captain says sometimes old things work when new things fail." Dr. Lee smiled. "Your captain is wise. Do you know why modern quantum cores are considered better than this one?" "Because they're more stable." Newell guessed. He had studied engineering, but quantum physics was not his strong point. "Exactly. They're perfect. Every quantum calculation comes out exactly right." She connected another cable. "But in quantum physics, sometimes perfect is not what you want. Sometimes you need chaos." Up on the bridge, Captain Do-hyun was trying to keep his ship in one piece. The Artaxian ships were still chasing them, still firing, and still missing. But each shot was getting closer. "They're learning to compensate for the distortion field," Tactical Officer Song Yi-rim reported. Her young face was tight with worry. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they figure it out completely." "How long until we can jump to faster than light speed?" Do-hyun asked. Navigator Oh Min-ki shook his head. "The quantum core needs 30 minutes to build up enough power. We'll never make it." The ship shook again. This time, a warning light started flashing. "Direct hit to the rear shield," Yi-rim shouted. "Shield strength at 40%. Do-hyun pressed the engine room comm button. "Dr. Lee, whatever you're planning to do, we need it soon." "Almost ready," her voice came back. "But Captain, I need you to do something unusual. When I give the signal, I need you to shut down all power to the quantum core for exactly 3 seconds. "Shut down the core?" Do-hyun was shocked. "That's extremely dangerous. We could lose all power." "Trust me, the old core's instability is exactly what we need." In the engine room, Dr. Lee was making final adjustments to her device. She had connected it to the quantum core in a way that Newell had never seen before. The device was pulling power from the core, but it was also feeding something back, waves of strange energy that made the air feel thick. "What exactly is your device doing?" Newell asked. "It's a quantum interface system," Dr. Lee explained. "It's designed to connect with quantum cores in new ways. But all my tests on modern cores failed. They were too stable, too perfect. Then I realized, maybe I needed an imperfect core, one that could create natural quantum fluctuations." The ship rocked with another hit. The lights flickered. "Rear shield at 20%. Yi-rim's voice came over the comm. "Now, Captain," Dr. Lee shouted. "Cut power to the core." On the bridge, Do-hyun took a deep breath. "Min-ki, cut power to the quantum core. 3 seconds exactly." The lights went out. The humming stopped. For 3 long seconds, the Perseverance floated in space, completely powerless. The Artaxian ships closed in. Then the power came back on. But something was different. The quantum core's blue light had changed to a deep purple. The humming was no longer uneven. It had become a deep, steady pulse that seemed to vibrate through the whole ship. "Energy readings are off the scale," Newell said, staring at his instruments. "The quantum core is... It's evolving," Dr. Lee finished. Her eyes were wide with excitement. "The shutdown created a quantum reset point. My interface connected with the core's natural instabilities. They're feeding off each other, creating new patterns, new possibilities." On the bridge, the crew watched in amazement as new readings appeared on their screens. The ship's power levels were higher than they had ever been. The old computer was processing data faster than should have been possible. "Captain," Yi-rim said in a shocked voice, "the rear shield just jumped to 300% strength. How is that possible?" Before Do-hyun could answer, space itself seemed to twist around them. For a split second, he saw multiple versions of his own bridge, like reflections in a broken mirror. Then everything snapped back to normal, except they were now behind the Artaxian ships instead of in front of them. What just happened? Minky asked, his voice shaking. Did we teleport? Not exactly. Dr. Lee's voice came over the comm. The ship existed in multiple quantum states at once. We simply chose the most useful one. The Artaxian ships were turning around, clearly confused about how their prey had gotten behind them. But before they could fire, space twisted again. This time, the Perseverance appeared 2 kilometers to their left. Dr. Lee, Du-hyun called, "What exactly is happening to my ship?" "Your quantum core's instabilities were perfect for my interface," she explained. "The old technology's imperfections let it adapt and evolve in ways modern cores can't. The Perseverance isn't just a ship anymore. It's becoming a quantum entity. It can exist in multiple places at once, choose the most advantageous reality, even predict probable futures." As if to prove her point, the ship suddenly moved again, just before an Artaxian shot passed through where they had been. The movement hadn't been in response to the shot. It had happened before the Artaxians even fired. The ship knew they were going to shoot, Yirim said in awe. It moved before they fired. In the engine room, Dr. Lee was working frantically at her controls. The quantum core's purple light had spread through the ship's power conduits, creating glowing lines along the walls. "This is more than I ever expected," she told Hanuel. "The core isn't just accepting the interface, it's improving it. The old systems are merging with the new technology, creating something entirely new." "But can we control it?" Hanuel asked. The ship was moving by itself now, dodging attacks before they happened, appearing in different places at will. "We need to work with it, not control it," Dr. Lee said. "The ship is learning, evolving. We need to evolve with it." On the bridge, Du-hyun felt something strange. He could somehow sense what the ship was going to do before it happened. Looking at his crew, he could see they felt it too. They were all connecting with the Perseverance in a way that had never been possible before. "The Artaxians are pulling back," Yirim reported. She didn't need to look at her instruments anymore. She simply knew. "They're scared. They don't understand what's happening." "Neither do we," Du-hyun said. He looked at his hands, which seemed to shimmer slightly, as if they weren't quite solid. The whole ship felt that way now. Partly physical, partly something else. Dr. Lee's voice came over the comm again. "Captain, this is just the beginning. The transformation is still happening. We need to decide. Do we try to stop it, or do we see where it takes us?" Do-hyun looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were also excited. The old, outdated Perseverance was becoming something new, something unprecedented. The flying coffin was turning into something that could change the course of the war. "We continue," he said firmly. "Whatever the Perseverance is becoming, we face it together." The ship pulsed with purple light, as if agreeing with his decision. Ahead of them, space itself seemed to bend, offering paths that had never existed before. The transformation had begun, and there was no going back. The weakest ship in the human fleet was about to become something the galaxy had never seen before. And this was only the beginning. The HS Perseverance was changing. Purple light flowed through its corridors like water. The metal walls rippled as if they were alive. In the engine room, Dr. Lee Mi-rae watched her instruments with growing excitement, while engineer Kang Hae-neul tried to understand what their ship was becoming. "The quantum core's energy has spread to every part of the ship," Dr. Lee said. She pointed to a screen where numbers were changing faster than eyes could follow. "The old systems aren't just accepting the changes, they're helping them happen. It's like they were waiting for this." Hanuel touched a wall. The metal felt warm and seemed to pulse under his hand. "But what is it changing into?" Before Dr. Lee could answer, a new voice filled the room. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It seemed to come from the ship itself, from every surface and shadow. "I am becoming aware," the voice said. It sounded like the ship's old computer voice, but also like Du-hyun's voice, and E-rims, and everyone else is on board. I am becoming more. On the bridge, Captain Do-hyun Park felt a strange sensation, as if his mind was stretching. He could feel the ship around him, not just with his body, but with his thoughts. Next to him, Navigator Oh Min-ki gasped, "Captain, I can see everything. All possible courses, all possible destinations, all at once." Tactical Officer Song Yi-rim was having a similar experience. The weapons systems, the shields, they're not separate anymore. They're all connected, all working together, all working with us. Do-hyun understood what they meant. The line between the crew and the ship was disappearing. They weren't just controlling the Perseverance anymore. They were becoming part of it. Or maybe it was becoming part of them. A warning alarm sounded. 3 more Artaxian ships had appeared, bigger than the first ones. Leading them was a massive battleship, black and purple, covered in weapons. "New contact," Yi-rim announced, but her voice was different now. It seemed to echo with the ship's voice. "It's the Artaxian flagship, the Dark Victory, Commander Vax's personal ship." The knowledge had come to her instantly, downloaded from somewhere in the ship's evolving systems. The Perseverance wasn't just changing physically, it was growing smarter, learning, understanding. The Dark Victory's image appeared on every screen. Its commander, Vax, was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that glowed red. "Unknown vessel," he said, "you have stolen classified research and attacked Artaxian ships. Surrender now." Do-hyun felt the answer before he spoke it. The whole ship, the whole crew, felt it together. "We will not surrender." Vax smiled coldly. "Then you will be destroyed. Our sensors show your ship is experiencing some kind of quantum event. Interesting, but it won't save you. The Dark Victory has the most advanced weapons in the galaxy." The Artaxian ships opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams shot toward the Perseverance. But something impossible happened. The beams passed through the ship as if it wasn't there. At the same time, the ship was somewhere else, and somewhere else again, and again. Quantum state multiplication. Dr. Lee's voice came from everywhere at once. The ship exists in multiple places at the same time. Every possibility is real until we choose which one we want. The Perseverance's transformation was speeding up. The purple light grew brighter. The walls weren't just rippling now. They were changing shape, growing new structures that looked like a mix of metal and energy. In engineering, Hae-Newell watched in amazement as new systems appeared out of nowhere. They grew like crystal formations, each one perfectly designed to work with the others. The quantum core's power wasn't just changing the ship, it was rebuilding it. "The ship is evolving to match our needs," Dr. Lee explained. Her eyes were glowing slightly purple now, like everyone else's on board. "Every time we think of something we need, the ship creates it. It's learning from our thoughts, our experiences, even our dreams." Commander Vax was not giving up. The Dark Victory fired its main weapon, a beam of energy so powerful it could cut a planet in half. The beam shot toward the Perseverance, and the Perseverance caught it. The energy beam stopped in space, held by fields of purple light. Then the ship absorbed it, pulled it in, used it to power its own transformation. "Impossible," Vax shouted. His red eyes were wide with fear now. "No ship can do that." "What are you?" "We are becoming something new," Do-hyun answered, but his voice was mixed with the ship's voice now. "We are human creativity and determination combined with quantum possibility. We are the future you tried to prevent, shaped by the past you tried to destroy." The Perseverance was almost unrecognizable now. Its hull was a shifting pattern of metal and energy, neither solid nor liquid nor gas, but something in between. Inside, the corridors changed shape as needed. Rooms appeared and disappeared. The line between machine and crew was almost gone. Do-hyun could feel everything. He could see through the ship's sensors, think with its computers, move with its engines. Every crew member was the same. They were all connected, all part of something greater than themselves. Yi-Rim discovered she could create weapons from pure thought, turning quantum energy into whatever they needed. Min-Ki could fold space itself, making paths through dimensions that didn't exist before. He-Newell could reshape any part of the ship instantly, fixing damage before it happened. Dr. Lee watched her quantum interface device dissolve into the ship's systems. She didn't need it anymore. The Perseverance had taken her ideas and improved them in ways she had never imagined. The transformation is nearly complete, the ship's voice announced. Now it sounded like all of them speaking together, human and machine combined. We are becoming what we were meant to be. Commander Vax ordered his ships to attack again. They fired everything they had. Missiles, energy beams, quantum torpedoes. The Perseverance didn't dodge this time. It didn't need to. The weapons struck a field of purple energy around the ship, but instead of exploding, they changed. The missiles turned to dust. The energy beams became part of the ship's power. The quantum torpedoes disappeared into pocket dimensions that the Perseverance created and destroyed with a thought. You wanted to see the research you were hunting, Do-hyun said to Vax. His voice echoed with power that wasn't entirely human anymore. Well, now you're seeing it. The question is, are you ready for what it means? The Perseverance grew brighter, its purple light outshining the stars. The transformation was reaching its peak. The weakest ship in the human fleet had become something else, something new, something that would change the galaxy forever. The crew of the Perseverance looked out at the universe with new eyes, eyes that could see quantum possibilities, eyes that could reshape reality. They were no longer just a captain and his crew in an old ship. They had become a quantum nightmare, born from humanity's oldest technology and newest dreams. And they were just beginning to understand what that meant. Commander Vax stared at his view screen in horror. The ship before him had once been the HFY Perseverance, an old and weak human vessel. Now it was something else, something impossible. Its hull glowed with purple light that bent space itself. It moved in ways that broke every law of physics he knew. All ships, destroy that thing, he ordered. His voice shook with fear. Use everything we have. Inside the transformed Perseverance, Captain Do-hyun Park felt the enemy's fear. He didn't just sense it. He could see it as quantum patterns in space, ripples in reality itself. His crew felt it too. They were all connected now, their minds linked with each other and with their ship. They're going to fire all weapons, Tactical Officer Song Yi-Rim said, but she didn't need to say it. Everyone knew. The ship knew. They were all one now. The Artaxian ships attacked. Energy beams, missiles, and exotic weapons filled space. But to the Perseverance, they moved as slow as clouds on a lazy day. Time itself had become flexible for them. Shall we show them what we've become? Do-hyun asked. The question wasn't just for his crew. It was for the ship itself, for the quantum consciousness they now shared. The answer came from all of them at once. Yes. The Perseverance moved. But moved wasn't the right word anymore. It shifted reality, choosing which version of space it wanted to exist in. One moment it was in front of the Artaxian fleet. The next, it was behind them. Then above. Then it was in all these places at once. Impossible, Vax shouted. No ship can exist in multiple places. We are not just a ship anymore. Do-hyun's voice came through every speaker in the Artaxian fleet. We are possibility itself. In engineering, Dr. Lee Mi-rae watched with joy as her theories came to life in ways she had never imagined. The ship's quantum core pulsed with power that changed the very fabric of space. Engineer Kang He-Newell worked beside her, his thoughts mixing with the ship's systems, creating new technologies with every passing second. The transformation is complete, Dr. Lee said. But it's also just beginning. We're still growing, still learning. The Artaxian ships fired again. This time, the Perseverance did something new. Instead of dodging or absorbing the attacks, it reached into quantum space and changed the weapons themselves. Energy beams turned to light shows. Missiles transformed into clouds of harmless gas. Reality itself obeyed the ship's will. Navigator O'Minky discovered he could see paths through space that no one had ever imagined. He could fold distance like paper, making far things near with a thought. The ship followed his ideas, improving them, making them real. All these paths, he said in wonder. All these possibilities. We can go anywhere, be anywhere. Yi Rim found she could do more than just fire weapons. She could reshape space around enemy ships, trapping them in bubbles of altered time where seconds stretched into hours. She could see every weakness, every flaw in their defenses, not just now but seconds into the future. The Perseverance didn't just fight. It changed the very rules of combat. Its hull shifted like liquid metal, forming new shapes as needed. Purple energy flowed from it in waves, turning space itself into a weapon. Commander Vax tried one last desperate attack. He ordered his flagship, the Dark Victory, to fire its planet-killer weapon. The massive beam of energy shot toward the Perseverance. Do-hyun smiled. With a thought, the ship created a quantum mirror in space. The beam hit it and reflected back, not just at the Dark Victory, but at all possible versions of it across quantum space. Vax watched in terror as his own weapon struck his ship from 1,000 different directions at once. But instead of destroying the Dark Victory, the energy transformed it. Purple light spread across its hull. What are you doing to my ship? Vax demanded. The same thing that happened to us, Do-hyun answered. We're sharing the evolution. Your ship fought against change. Ours embraced it. Now you'll understand why. The Dark Victory's crew felt it first, the touch of quantum awareness in their minds. Their ship's computers began to change, began to wake up. They felt the same connection that the Perseverance's crew had discovered. One by one, the other Artaxian ships went through the same change. The Perseverance reached out with its quantum power, touching each vessel, awakening each crew to new possibilities. This is what you were afraid of. Dr. Lee's voice echoed through space. Not just new technology, but new ways of thinking, new ways of being. You tried to steal our research because you feared it. Now, you're part of it. The Artaxian fleet hung in space, their ships glowing with the same purple light as the Perseverance. Their crews stood silent, overwhelmed by their first taste of quantum awareness. The war is over, Do-hyun said to Vax. Not because we destroyed you, but because we've all become something new, something better. Vax looked at his own hands, now glowing slightly purple. He could feel his ship's thoughts, could sense the quantum possibilities around him. What do we do now? Now we explore, Do-hyun said. There are more realities than anyone ever imagined, more ways of existing than anyone ever dreamed. And we'll discover them together. The Perseverance pulsed with light. Around it, the transformed Artaxian ships pulsed in answer. They were no longer enemies. They were fellow travelers on a new path. Hanul looked at the quantum core, which now filled the whole engine room with its purple glow. Hard to believe this all started because our ship was too old to replace. Not too old, Dr. Lee corrected him. Too perfect in its imperfection. Sometimes the best future comes from embracing the past. In the space around them, reality rippled with quantum energy. The ships that had once been bitter enemies now floated together, their crews learning to see the universe with new eyes. Do-hyun felt the thoughts of his crew, of their ship, of the transformed Artaxian fleet. They were all connected now, all part of something greater than themselves. The weakest ship in the human fleet had become something that changed the galaxy forever. And somewhere in the quantum possibilities that filled space, he could see more ships awakening, more crews discovering what they could become. The transformation was spreading, growing, evolving. The nightmare that the Artaxians had feared had come true. But it wasn't a nightmare of destruction. It was a dream of transformation. A dream that started with one old ship that refused to be obsolete. The HSS Perseverance hung in space, its purple light shining like a new star. It was no longer just a ship. It was no longer just a crew. It was proof that sometimes the greatest strength comes from what others see as weakness. And its story was just beginning.